and with me today, I have DJD.
Howdy.
And that's it.
And Craig.
And Greg, well, right, of course, there's Craig, but as far as guests on the podcast, Farmer is not coming, you guys. He quit.
Officially. Finally.
Officially, he quit. So this, I guess, maybe we'll let him come back as a guest, but his permanent spot on the podcast is vacant. His seat on the digital couch is empty, you might say. But yes, back there in the sound booth, we do have Craig. What's up, Craig? How are you? All right. Well, getting started. I want to talk about a very relatable problem that I have, which is I need to rearrange my studio. I am blessed enough to have a studio outside of the house, which is actually, I really do need it because, with kids and such, I need a space that I can go and get work done. And our house is too small for me to have a home office or anything. But I share my studio with Chiho, as many of our listeners have probably noticed as I'm talking, and you can hear her talking in the background or laughing or whatever. Or screaming. And one of the issues is that the way that this room is set up, and this is, to be honest, I don't really want to change the setup because we're doing the visual bit right at the beginning of the podcast. Because really, if you've seen my streams or anything like that, I think this is the best setup we've done. It works really well. We even have an extra desk for people to come and visit. So we have visiting artists who come and work at that desk while Chiho and I are working. It's really cool. And for Chiho, it's very literally really cool because she sits under the AC unit. And so she is sitting there literally right now. She's wearing a sweater because she's freezing cold. I'm sitting in this other corner where it's literally impossible for the air to hit me. It only feels cool in here from the ambient temperature going down, right? There's no airflow right here. And literally yesterday, my wife was here. And so basically, Chiho and the guest get the nice under the AC seat. And I sit in this corner and I just sweat all day. We decided to switch it. Chiho complaining about it all the time. My wife came and complained about it. So I need to figure out how to take apart my desk and take over Chiho's desk and move Chiho's stuff over here. And to be honest, it's all I'm thinking about. We started this podcast. All I'm thinking about is how I'm going to do this. What's up with you, D?
Not much. Been a long week.
I know what's up with you. So you all think that this is a podcast, but it's actually an intervention.
Oh, no.
And I'll go first. D, we feel like Star Wars Outlaws is taking up a lot of your life. We really do.
What?
We really do.
My stream titles haven't given it away.
Yeah, your stream titles.
An Outlaws addiction.
Your very strange schedule. D's already up late. He's up so late, it's early playing this game.
Yeah, it's like 7 a.m. my time or something. Yeah, and I still haven't gone to bed yet.
I'm like, man, I got to put the kids to bed, and David's streaming Star Wars Outlaws. How is that game?
Look, it's just a really good game. It's a really great. I don't know. I'd hate to say that, because for sure when we were all playing Helldivers, I'm like, this game is absolutely probably going to be my game of the year. But Outlaws is really, really, really good. So we'll see.
It's interesting because most of what I've seen online about it is super negative. Of course, yeah. Right? Even in those videos, on Instagram, where people are being super negative or being oh, look at how bad it looks. The comments do have quite a bit of people being like, oh, I'm playing the game and it's great. It's not perfect, but no game is perfect. And it's just a fantastic game kind of a deal.
There's a bunch of small little immersion breakers, but they're the kind of things that literally no game doesn't have, for instance, there's towns that you can go in and you can't just shoot everyone in a town, right? You can't commit mass murder. So, I mean,
some games do let you do that. I've played,
but not
played
many.
Red Dead.
Most games don't.
I found out at one point that Legend of Zelda doesn't let you kill townspeople or like normal people. They only let you kill enemies. So like you can't hit them, you can't do it. And I found that out. I just, I'm just full transparency here. I found that out because I definitely tried to kill somebody because I was so annoyed with them. I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna ram this Master Sword into your belly, and they wouldn't let me. Turns out they don't let you do that. But you can't do that in Outlaws either, huh? You can't kill everybody?
No, like you can't even take out your weapon in towns, right? And so like that's a little immersion breaking up, I guess.
Is everyone named?
Most people I feel like are. Yeah, I feel like a lot of them are. But it's a great game. It's fantastic. It actually, the comparison I've been making on stream has been that it's actually kind of a lot like Batman, actually, in terms of like the way that you have to approach the combat. Where like,
you can't just fight.
you can, but it's going to be more difficult. It's better to go like Predator style and like take out everybody like sneakily or whatever and try to be stealthy. And like then there's like the forced stealth missions, but so far, like granted, I'm only like 30 hours in, so who knows? But like so far they haven't been annoying. And
but
like,
also
turn down all that in settings, so
correct me if I'm wrong here. You're not a Jedi.
No, you're definitely not. You definitely
so like not
have the Force.
being
so far.
Yeah, so far. Also, correct me if I'm wrong here. You're also not a Mandalorian wearing Beskar armor.
Correct. No, you're just a scoundrel. You're just some girl whose mother was like a thief, and you're a thief too.
It really makes sense that you shouldn't just be duking it out with everybody because you're just a normal Star Wars person.
Well, and that's one of the brilliant things I think about Kay, who's the protagonist, is that she's not that great at, like, she's not like super good. She's good. She's way better than average. Like, she has a set of skills, but they're not like super refined, right?
They're not particular.
So, yeah. But so essentially, like any mistakes I make in gameplay, I can just play off as, oh, that's just Kay, you know? Like, I mean,
yeah.
She's just not that good yet. So, like, if I mess up, like, oh, it's just Kay being a little clumsy, you know? I mean, or any gimmicky things like accidentally awakening like half the Imperial Battalion or whatever, or like jumping around because, like, you're trying to be sneaky and the buttons just don't quite do the thing that you want because it's a Ubisoft game. Like, I mean, oh, that's just Kay, she accidentally does that sometimes. Oops.
Are you playing on Xbox?
That's the other great thing about this game. It plays best on Xbox right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The PC port has had a bunch of issues apparently, and then the PlayStation port has been plagued by like a major glitch after major bug. Repeatedly, like game erasing bugs.
Oh my god!
Yeah, so like literally like one of my friends was playing and he couldn't leave the first planet, and like that was annoying too. But yeah, like our save data erasing was the other big one on PlayStation. So my thought is Xbox should be snarky, do the whole PlayStation. This is how you play used games, like marketing tactic. And, like say, hey, Outlaws plays best on Xbox, I mean, I feel like that would be, pretty brilliant, but.
No, I agree. Or just be like, this is how, like, oh, why should I buy an Xbox?
Yeah.
Why should I buy an Xbox? You can play Star Wars Outlaws on it.
I don't know if we talked about Enotria last week, did we? I don't think we did.
Well, I don't even know what that is. But before we move on from Outlaws, I do want to bring up not getting to play it until it comes out on Steam Deck because I'm just not purchasing games on my Xbox currently. Just because lifestyle-wise, it just makes more sense for me to be able to play stuff mobily. And I do have a lot of hope that it's going to come to Steam because they just recently released the Ship game and the Prince of Persia game. Ubisoft did on Steam.
Yeah.
So probably in a few months. Which isn't a big deal to me. I'm playing Horizon Zero Dawn right now. I just don't get the hate. Like seeing like the comparison videos, like you can take super beloved games and find a weak part in it where another game did it better and then make a comparison video. You know what I mean? Right. Like, yeah. So one of the ones I saw was like the water and the game didn't look so great in this one video, and they were comparing it to all of these things. And it's just like, that's, you know, that's not really the focus of this game. It's just weird. It's just really weird seeing people go out of their way to try and tear something down, especially stuff that, like, you know, whether, you know, maybe they aren't playing it or it's just, you know, currently popular to hate. I don't know. I don't know. I don't get it. But then again, I like the Acolyte, so maybe I don't get it, you know?
I would say this, too, that I am very much, like, unable to play bad-looking games. And it sucks, because there are bad-looking games that are good games to play, and I just can't do it, right? Like,
I totally get you, dude. I
out of me.
can't play the old Fable games. I didn't play Fable 1 or Fable 2. I started with Fable 3. I just can't play them. They just look too bad for me.
It's hard for me to go back to that kind of stuff, for sure. Acolyte, not Acolyte, Outlaws looks pretty good. Like, especially in terms of environment or whatever. This is another visual bit here, but this is a screenshot I took in game. Like, that's
hey guys, check out this. Wow, incredible! Check out this screenshot.
But I mean, like,
wow.
It legitimately does look
pretty.
pretty.
Put it back up. I'm gonna describe it. I'm gonna describe it for the audio podcast. So if I had to describe what I'm looking at, imagine there's a chasm. And on one side, it looks like the red lyrium from Dragon Age. And then on the right side. And then on the left side, there's like what appears to be a broken apart ship with weeds growing through it. So clearly it's been there a long time. There's trees, there's sky, there's shadows. A lot of red. All right, I think I did a great job. Perfect. All right, continue. You guys, you might as well have seen it, right? Like, it's, you know, some people call me a wordsmith.
That's like those, you know, those captions, you know, that go on the bottom of images, you know, the alt text or whatever to describe.
Oh yeah,
you should write those. Yeah,
it should.
I love the really simple ones, like man in blue shirt, and it's like, okay, all right, well, that
Steve,
was descriptive.
Steve from Minecraft.
Yeah. Oh, did you see that Minecraft trailer?
I did see the Minecraft trailer. So I'm a little torn on it. What about you?
I think it's fine. I mean, it's weird that they're going the direction that they're going with it, like with like
That's
having
kind of
like live
feeling.
action people in the Minecraft world. But
it's almost like a old Jumanji kind of deal, you know?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It strikes me as that.
Almost Jumanji-ish. I thought it was going to be all animated. I see people are upset that they just put Jack Black in like a blue shirt and they're calling him Steve, and they're like, "There's no Steve." Guys, Steve is a nothing character. There is nothing about Steve. Like, chill out. Oh my god. But here's the bigger thing. I have a 11-year-old son who likes Minecraft, and he thinks it looks great. And I think if you think about the actual audience that they're catering to, it's going to go great.
I think that's 100% accurate, yeah. And I think also, like, when it came down to it, the CGI effects looked kind of cool and stuff. I mean, like, I don't know. Like,
agreed.
It should be an enjoyable watch, at least for some people. You know, maybe not everybody.
It'll be fun.
It should be, yeah.
I think if you go into it without deciding that you hate it, probably it'll be a fun time.
And I mean, like, we talk about that exhaustively, but like, yeah, the hating stuff before you even know what it is just insane.
And pretending that like Minecraft lore is super deep and super dark and like rich and all of that is like, guys, this is a game for kids. The average age of a Minecraft player is like 10 years old or whatever. Like, let's all just take a breath here. It was exactly like, I'm going to reference it again, the Acolyte, watching the Acolyte, people being like, the writing is so bad. And I'm like, okay, like, point me to a Star Wars movie that doesn't have bad writing, except Rogue One. I'm not including Rogue One in that. Rogue One is the least Star Wars movie.
Yep, true. They could have not even called it Star Wars and like removed the references, and it would have stood on its own really well.
Incredible.
It's like the Winter Soldier of Star Wars when it comes down to it.
Exactly. Oh my God. Perfect. You're right. You're 100% right. Yes, Rogue One is the Winter Soldier of Star Wars. Like, yeah, like, come on, guys. Come on. So yeah, I am excited for it. It comes out next year.
Yeah,
I may go see that movie in theaters with Little J.
But to go back to Outlaws real quick, like honestly, like I think it looks great most of the time. There's details that obviously aren't the best. Like I think if you compare certain games aspects to it, that's getting like unfairly picky about certain things. Like
Right.
if you compare Sea of Thieves or like even Skull and Bones Water, you know? Like okay, sure. But I mean like also if you compare the grass in certain games to like the grass in Outlaws, which does not look great. But I think ultimately it's the same thing that I've always said about Jedi Fallen Order, where it's everything coming together and you have to judge it as that, right? Like you have to judge everything as a whole and like the sum of its parts
Mm.
equals something greater than that, you know, than each individual part put together.
Watching you stream it, it gave me a lot of like Jedi Survivor, Jedi Fallen Order vibes.
That specific part that I was doing last night was very Jedi Survivor like, yeah. Or Jedi, yeah, I guess Jedi Survivor, I would say probably closer than Fallen Order. But I also have, there's a setting in it where you can turn off the, like, you know how in certain games, like, they call it yellow paint, but it's like a clear, like, visual indicator of where to go next. You
Yes.
can actually turn that off for immersion's sake.
Right.
And I turned that off, and that makes certain segments really difficult because it's
Yeah.
literally just like a ledge on like an otherwise like very similarly colored like wall or whatever that you have to jump to, and you don't even know it's there. It's kind of it
Right.
kind of reminds me of it's kind of almost like they put that in just to tell people to shut up about like yellow paint, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Like kind of the same way that same but different in the same way that MCC has Halo 1 Anniversary with the toggle to go back to the old
Right.
way that you do for like
Right.
5 minutes and then you never do again because it's like, oh yeah, no, this actually looks way better.
Yeah, you're like, oh man, like my imagination filled in so many gaps here. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's rough. Well, my favorite yellow paint in a game is in the Mirror's Edge games
Yeah,
because
I
they
like the way
use
Mirror's
red.
Edge does it. Yeah.
But it's like it almost feels like, but it's like based around the runners too. If you read it, they're like runners are obsessed with red and the idea that they have like laid out specific paths and painted it red so that you'll see it. It's like I don't know. It's a weird like it is a part of the game, or like the doors are
Right.
red. Like they did it in a really interesting way that I really liked.
What was the game? Was it Fable or was it like maybe LA Noir where it was like gold doorknobs meant that you could enter the buildings or something? I don't know. It was
I
something like
don't think
that.
it's Fable. Didn't Fable have
Yeah.
like the yellow brick, like the gold path, the yellow brick road that you followed everywhere?
Oh yeah, sure, but that was like a guide path. That wasn't necessarily like, you know. But my favorite will always be the way that Jedi Fallen Order did it, where I think they mastered walking that line between like being too much and too little, where it was perfectly balanced, where like it just seemed natural. Like you start off that game and you know exactly where to go and you know exactly what to do. And they do such a good job with like shining a light at the perfect angle to kind of show you like, oh hey, you need to go like up this like rope or whatever. Or like, oh, like right here, you see this gap that's in eye line perfectly, and like you know that you need to squeeze through it. And they just do a really good job at that.
Is there a lot of crevasses that you have to squeeze through in Star Wars Outlaws?
I'm pretty sure that it renders each like planet that you land on like entirely. So like I
Huh.
don't think they're loading screens. I think it's just like a part of the world or whatever, like another entrance way, you know? Like
Interesting.
Outlaws reminds me a lot of Assassin's Creed in kind of the way that it gives you like multiple avenues to approach things. But then a lot
Mm.
of Batman in the way that you approach combat or whatever and sneaking around. I guess a little bit like Assassin's Creed too, but I mean, I don't know. The Predator stuff definitely feels like very like Arkham or Assassin's Creedy in terms of that.
Yeah, and there is a really I feel like there's just a lot of games that go like that stealthy take people down route. Like there would be, Daredevil would be a great game for that.
Oh my
Uh
gosh, it would be, yeah.
like a takedown Daredevil game like that. But yeah, I look forward to trying it out.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
It's just it's really kind of like I feel like Xbox could use the win right now and just like, you know, tweet out like Outlaws plays best on Xbox and just like go with it, and you know, I'm sure that that would inflame people's hatred. a little bit.
Oh yeah, they
But
get super mad.
yeah, but
Microsoft could
Xbox could
use the
use the win.
win.
Yeah.
What?
So there was a game called Anochia: The Last Song, which is coming to PlayStation and PC first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they put out a statement saying that they're going to have to yet again delay their Xbox release because Xbox has not been in contact with them for months, right? Uh, Now, part of that could absolutely be true, like especially with Microsoft actually being pretty. I feel like Xbox specifically, I shouldn't say all of Microsoft, but I feel like, yeah, no, I would say actually Microsoft in general has been kind of like transparent in a way that like most companies aren't, like with the CrowdStrike stuff, right? Like they were
Mm-hmm.
pretty open about like what caused it and everything and like admitting like their part in it or whatever. Or like when Delta complained about stuff, like they snapped back officially, as a company,
Right.
like, hey, this is our official statement on that, as opposed to just keeping quiet the way that most companies do and like try to work it out behind the scenes. As an aside, it's really weird that companies are like getting like trying to like do this thing where they complain publicly to try to like,
Mm-hmm.
influence
Get like
public opinion. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that's just really weird. Like, I mean, I know it works for like individuals, but to see companies doing it is kind of odd. Like, why are you trying to like win people's approval in the court of public opinion? Like, that's just weird.
Right. Like
But
the
I
headline
guess,
there
yeah.
is that they're delaying their Microsoft launch, not that, oh, it's because Microsoft's not talking to us. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
yeah, but like I mean, it could be true that like and even Microsoft even said like, oh, well there are some protocols that we have in place because of like recent like hacking attempts and stuff that like might have actually like negatively affected our ability to talk to this developer, and thankfully they were able to point it out. So now we're in direct contact with them, but we're also making sure that like we can respond more proactively, right? And that's the
right.
result you want to see. And I'm always a fan of that. But like what's weird is that this developer of this game also put out like a few months ago in their Discord like, oh well, like I mean like we'll come out with Xbox later, but we decided to focus on PlayStation and PC first and stuff. And it's like, I don't know, that seems kind of weird. That seems kind of odd. And then also, like, everybody immediately blamed the delay on Series S, right? Online. Even though the developer did not mention Series
Right.
S at all. And, like, no, that wasn't a factor. Yet again, yet another, like, phantom Series S problem, I mean, yeah.
Well, it's interesting that people so quickly want to blame like the console that is allowing so many more people to like have a next gen console and game. You know what I mean? I do
Right.
find that interesting. It's a weird like I don't know. It's a weird like flex to be like, oh, like that's just the Series S. It's like no, like relax. Well, but
Yeah.
I mean, also talking about wins for Microsoft. I mean, didn't that PlayStation game just close down? That they spent $200 million on. You know the game I'm talking about? What's it called? Didn't we
Yeah,
just
that's on
talk
my
about
list
this
too.
game?
We talked
Didn't
about
we
it.
just
Yeah,
talk
we
about
talked
it
we
and
talked
that
about
it
it
wasn't
last week.
doing
Yeah.
well?
Yeah, it had
Eh,
like a total of like 600, 700 players, 690 something at on Steam, like on launch day or whatever. And now that studio's like uh halting all development on it. PlayStation has officially pulled it entirely, issuing
And they gave people
refunds like,
refunds.
yeah.
And you know what's
Um
crazy is that this is also Microsoft's fault somehow. I think you could really blame this on the Series S. Really, if you start to look into the numbers, this is the Series S, specifically Phil Spencer's fault. I mean, I
yeah.
really do think so. I really do think so.
That that actually really kind of upsets me, not because the game like isn't getting played or like was like maybe they put too many eggs in one basket, like devoted too many resources to a crowded market game that like is just out of place and out of time, which happens, and it sucks when it
Right.
does happen. I mean, Titanfall 2, great example. This I feel like is a
Ugh.
way worse situation, like just even if it hadn't been pulled. But
Titanfall 2 would
also,
have been worse if Apex didn't happen. You know what I mean? Like if
yeah.
Apex didn't come in and save the day for Respawn, it would have been really different.
Yeah.
But
I don't know that we'd see
now,
like Star Wars games from Respawn if Apex hadn't come in.
I mean, Apex
I
is
feel
just
like we might
printing
not.
money.
Yeah.
Like it just like it's insane.
But like the pull of this game, the only other game I know, I'm sure that there's been a few. I feel like it's really, really rare for a game to get released and then pulled this way just because of like low player count or whatever. Or like fan feedback, I guess, is one of the other reasons that's being cited, even though I have not seen very much negative feedback from people who've actually played the game. The only other game I can think of that was pulled was an Amazon Games release that was also like a hero shooter called Crucible, but that was like more like further back camera or whatever. But like hero shooters are just like a really tough market. Like you have to offer something new, I feel like, to compete in that market because there's so many of them. Between like Valorant, Rogue Company, like Overwatch, obviously, like I mean, like those are three off the top of my head, but there's a ton more.
Apex itself is also a hero shooter, technically. Like
Yeah,
it is a battle
that's true,
royale,
yeah.
but there are different modes. There are, there's gun run and there's deathmatch and all of that as well.
Right.
Yeah.
But what I really don't like is the lack of accountability that there will be. Like they say that they pulled this game to work on it or whatever to respond to fan feedback. I don't know how you work on it like in such a way that you're going to get more people playing it when you bring it back out unless you put it on like PlayStation Plus or something. Like
I
or
just don't
just
understand
free
what's
overall.
the purpose of pulling it. This is kind of comes back to we talked about. I watched the Acolyte because people were worried that they were going to pull it the same way they pulled the Willow show. I did not look into that at all, but I do remember there was a Willow show and that now it's gone. I don't know.
Right.
I say this from complete ignorance. I don't know why of anything on that. But I did watch. This is going to sound really random. I watched Willow as a kid and was like weirdly into it because like rewatching it, man, that movie's weird, dude. Like kids, when you're a kid, you're into weird stuff. I feel like I was like all about this movie Willow. And I never got a chance to watch the show, and now I can't. Right? But like, what's the purpose of making something like inaccessible to people? I mean, even to the point that like they issued refunds. I mean, I say that I would have never played this game. Just period. Right? Like you can't get me to play the game. Like even you specifically, D, would not be able to get me to play this game. Just because, like you said, it's another hero shooter. I would just be like, why can't we just play something else? Like if you want to play a shooter, let's play a different shooter.
But I hate the idea of just pulling games just because they don't have the player bases at launch. Like I think of like Grounded and Sea of Thieves and like so many other titles that like have come out and like gotten way more success, maybe even years down the line, right? Like Fallout 76 is a great example of like
God, I hated that game. I hated that game at launch.
Came out at launch and just wasn't there or whatever. And those had legitimate like development problems. But they were not only kept live, but also worked on behind the scenes. I feel like you could have done that with Concord too, but instead
I couldn't even remember the name of that game, dude. I just was just quiet. I didn't even remember Concord. Well, but I mean, I wonder how much they did make, though. Even though people were upset and they had a small player base, surely it was still financially viable because, like, servers cost money. All of that stuff costs money, and keeping staff aboard costs money.
I think with Sea of Thieves and Grounded, you have Game Pass, right, which helps a lot. Because like then you really just have to justify like people having access and like getting the subsubscription.
Right.
You don't necessarily have to justify the game itself.
But Sea of Thieves came out
pre-Game
Pass, didn't it?
That's no,
it was like a launching thing for Game Pass.
It was like a launch. Yeah, it was like a launch title for Game Pass.
But a lot of people still bought. Yeah. A lot, right? Me neither. But I feel like a lot of people still did. Like Game Pass wasn't sold on people yet, and people and so people were still in the mindset of just buying games versus subscribing to something. But yeah, I mean, but maybe the failure is much worse. Maybe it's that much Concord, worse.
Like based on estimations, apparently it only made like about $1 million. And after like them spending like over 100 million on it, like that's
Did they spend?
Really bad.
I heard like 200 million. Did they spend 200 million or was it 100?
I thought it was 100. It might be 200.
This
But
is this reminds me of like it's like when the US government like hires Boeing to like make a spaceship, maybe, for example. And and they just dump so much money into it that like realistically it can't succeed, right? Like
sure,
there's just no
yeah.
way that you can make it back because of how much you dumped into it.
But the problem is too, like, so they removed this game. They say that they're going to work on it and re-release it. I think the likelihood of that happening is pretty small. I'd be surprised, honestly. Like, it's way easier to justify not continuing to develop a game after it's not available anymore and not visible to people and behind
If
the scenes.
they had good characters that aren't generic, they can reuse their characters and make some other kind of cheaper game and try and generate interest that way. You know, make a mobile game or something. Like this sounds so, but like really, right? Like, but even
Yeah,
with that, it seemed generic enough that I don't even know that they have characters like that. Like, how iconic is Winston or
right.
Tracer, Diva, right? Widowmaker, like just the original cast even of Overwatch. They had very aesthetically iconic people to be playing, and like I've seen a couple pictures from this game and none that really like stood out to me so much.
Right. I don't like the idea of something just being removed entirely from like accessibility though. Like I mean like
Yeah, it's not a great feeling for sure.
yeah. Like I really 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 like the game preservation stuff Xbox has done with backward compatibility.
But
Even if
also,
I'm not going to go back and play a ton of those,
was
you
there
know, like
even a campaign though? Because that's happened
no.
with
And that's
Microsoft
the
games
weird
too,
thing.
right? Like
Like yeah. So like
Evolve is fun.
they set up backstories and stuff, you know, for like their characters. They had like weekly cinematics that they were going to do. And they did two of them, I guess. But like, why? Like, if this is just a hero PvP shooter, like, why are you putting all this effort
Right.
into that? Like, I mean, that just seems weird.
Well, and
Like
but that
that
comes back to
first
it too.
trailer
Like
looked so cool, and then it just turns out no, that's not the game at all. Like
you
that was all
can't
cinematic.
play Evolve anymore, right? The servers are down.
True.
So
Yeah.
if you, well, maybe you could play like a private match. Could you do something like that? I don't like peer to peer.
I'm not
Maybe
sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, it might have local, if nothing
But
else.
the
Yeah.
problem with games like that have no story and have like it's like an online service type game is that yeah, like if there's no, I mean, look at like Avengers, right? Like if
Yeah.
there's no
Yeah.
support for
But
it,
you can
then
still
it's just
play
gone.
Avengers, you know, as far
Right.
as I know.
That's
I
true.
haven't tried, but yeah. Or like Anthem, you know, Anthem is still up and running. Still.
Right, but
Like,
Anthem had more of a story. Anthem had more
true.
like it's not being further developed. So in a way, it's just like an old game, right? Once you beat Halo
Yeah.
3, it was over,
But
right?
like
So to
the fact
speak.
that you can still connect to its online servers to play multiplayer is still kind of crazy. I don't know
Not the
if you had
original
to be
Halo
online
3.
for the or
Not the
yeah,
original
yeah,
Halo
yeah.
3.
That's
But
true.
yes,
Yeah.
MCC you can. But even that, like it's this weird thing. I mean, we talked about it that I got this. I downloaded all of my digital library and stuff from my movies and my TV shows because 10 years ago, so I've lived in Japan for 10 years. This actually, we just crossed this, right? My 10-year anniversary of living out of America. I was all in on digital, was making the transition. I've been totally digital since moving here because it's like, it's always there, right? Like, oh,
Right.
like if you have an internet connection, you're going to have access to it. And it's really interesting that here I am 10 years later, and that's not true for some things, right? They're just taking. And I'm not like a pro physical media person. I don't want people to hear this and be like, oh, wow, I don't own any physical games or anything. Because for me, like, that's just more space. It's just more stuff. You know what I mean? But it is interesting to be like, oh, if I want to keep something, I actually need to like download it off of the internet and have it because it could just go away.
Yeah.
Which is it's not great. I think of you hear like people talk about like, the conspiracy theorists that we didn't go to the moon and be like, how could we not know how to go back? But like, this is a great example of like, we just don't have, even if we had the tech, like the stuff, like who has, if you have a file on a floppy disk, how are you going to access that? right? Like, I don't
Right.
even like, do they even make like USB to like floppy disk read, all of that kind of stuff, or like videos? Like, do you have a VCR? I haven't even seen a VCR in more than 10 years, you know? Um, and so all of that to say, like, digital decays too, like analog stuff does, right? And we see, like, oh, record players are back and some stuff are back. I recently saw someone on Threads be like, you should, like, to musicians, don't just put your stuff on streaming services, but like burn CDs. Why don't you sell actual CDs? And I was just like, okay, let's be completely honest with each other here. You don't listen to CDs.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest. You never are like, you know what? I'm going to whip out my CD player and let me whip out my huge binder full of CDs and put it in a CD, because that's insane. If you want to listen to a song, you don't like leaf through all of your albums. You just pull up your phone and you do a quick search and you just listen to it. Like, that's why no one's doing that. It's wild. But anyway, did they sell physical copies of Concord? Do those people get to keep it?
Uh, I mean, they probably can't play it because I think it was an always online PvP game. But yeah, I would imagine that they're not under any compunction. But also, like, that's a collector's item, right? Like, that's a badge.
Right.
That might be actually worth something because of the rarity
But
of it at some point.
there's this interesting thing of, on one hand, if your game is always online, you have the opportunity to make an insane amount of money, right? Like, I think Apex has made
Sure.
more than $3 billion in the time that it's been out. But there's also the opportunity that it'll just go really, really badly. And like, it'll end
Right.
up just being
Yeah.
worth nothing,
Well,
right?
the
Not
fact
even
is
like
that
that. Yeah, it's wild.
most live service games fail. Just
Yeah.
that's literally it, and people forget that because they look at games like Apex or like even Helldivers. I would say like still is relatively a success, even if like there's like not nearly as many people playing it right now. You
Yeah.
know, I mean like but still like I mean I would say that as a live service that it's still living. You know, like or
But it's
Destiny
slowed
2,
down.
which Destiny 2 just hit its lowest player count like ever. I think.
Good.
And
Good.
like, but like, yeah, it's like when it comes down to it, like live service is a huge risk, and people probably just should like not be planning on it like making instant money or like
Right.
being a sure
$100
thing
million
in terms of income.
$100 million to invest in, like, that's a lot of money.
Yeah,
And to
but
invest,
to pull it in
it's a lot of
14 days though, that's also crazy.
yeah.
You know, like I mean,
It's a lot of money to pull it so quickly, and to also take so long to make it. Like,
yeah,
you showed up to the
like
party
8
late,
years, yeah.
right? You showed up to the party late. All the food at the party's already been divided by the people who have been there either from the beginning of the party or like came in at an early enough point, and then they just left before anyone
Yeah.
even knew they were there, so to speak, right? It's pretty wild.
But I mean, like you bring up an interesting point with the whole like digital like conservation of things and like how that's not a sure thing if it's online or whatever. Um, on the other end, though, I think that you have problems with people not understanding what is okay to like reproduce and what's not.
Mm,
Like,
yeah.
for instance, like no one understands copyright law at all.
Nobody.
Nobody
Yes, this is true.
on this
Nobody.
planet. Yeah.
I love
And
it.
don't get me wrong, some of copyright law is like extremely outdated and needs to be revised. Like
Yes.
probably a significant portion of it, especially in a digital age.
Yes,
But
definitely.
like I mean like when it comes down to it too, like the laws are what currently
It's the
stands
law.
and they are
law.
laws for a reason ostensibly, you know, like even if like that reason doesn't necessarily apply as valid or if there's better ways to like make sure that that intent is still carried through now like there was probably some kind of like nobody invented copyright law for no reason, you know. um I think of the
I
that reminds me of the Internet Archive case. Did you read about this that
mm,
happened this
I
past
did
week?
not I did not read about it. What did they break a bunch of copyright law saving stuff?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so what Internet Archive was doing, and what they just lost a court case in the Southern District of New York, uh, in doing, was that they were essentially copying entire books and then lending them out without any kind of limit or any kind of like license to anyone who wanted it. Which I can see the I can see the attempt at preserving books, like, and there being some validity to that, and I can also see the frustration with like, wait a second, this is a digital book. Like, why are there only like a limited number of copies of this digital book available? Right?
Right,
Like,
right.
I get the confusion about that, but also I'm pretty sure that's so that like you still generate sales, so that you're not like completely like ripping off like an author's work and just like essentially
Right.
pirating it to everyone for free. I'm pretty sure
Yes.
that's the reason. And like, so for them to think that like, okay, this is fine to do and like have no regard for the original artist is like kind of crazy, especially when we're talking about like more recent works that are still very easily accessible. Like, I would get it
Yeah.
if this was all stuff that like, impossible to find nowadays or whatever, But
Right.
I mean,
Well,
like,
that's why public domain exists too, right? Stuff in
right,
the public
yeah,
domain you can do
yeah,
stuff with. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's interesting. So,
But
as a, I am not only a Twitch streamer, DJD and I, and we've had to look up into a lot of copyright stuff of what is allowed for you to do on stream. Also, I'm a musician and make music, and looked into a lot of what am I allowed to do, and when is it considered copyright. And basically, everyone is breaking the law. Everybody is breaking
yeah,
copyright law. It's just so crazy. And I remember talking to someone. He's like, "Oh, but like, can't I play like this little clip of the movie?" No, dude, you can't. I heard if it's under
right.
4 seconds. No, it's not if it's under four
yeah.
seconds. No, you can't do it without permission. And if you don't have, like, you need to apply. And the amount I make chill electronic music, like kind of lo-fi adjacent stuff. If you hear any audio from a movie or from anything in a song, that is illegal. Yeah. Or maybe this random lo-fi artist has gotten permission or paid for the sample from Warner Brothers or from whoever is like publishing it and has the rights to it. But my assumption would be is that they're just hoping it flies under the radar and they
right.
can make a little bit of money. But and this is the point. They're making money on something that belongs to someone else.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, and when it's intellectual property, it's really easy, whether it's a book or whatever, or maybe you're giving it out for free. Sure, but like when you make something, it doesn't really work like that. Like if you made like an actual thing, right? And then people were just taking it and then using it to make money, and you're like, well, this is actually this is my thing. Like you can't just take it. And they're like, well, I am taking it, and now because of, the brand recognition that you have, now people are paying me and I'm using your thing. Like all of it is supposed to protect the people who create these things. It's supposed to
Right.
protect them and make sure that they get fairly compensated. And people hate all like fan art, all of this stuff. Oh, it's just owned by a big company. People hate all of this stuff, but it's just like, yeah, sure. But it's like unions, like getting residuals, having like that protection helps you keep going because you don't have a normal job, like, or a normal paycheck. Right. And so as far as like just hearing you, like the idea that someone is ripping my music and selling my music for themselves, or even just giving it away for free, is
Right.
like, on one hand, good luck making money that way because it's pretty hard. So like, again, good luck with that. I can't seem to make it work. On the other hand, it's like, it's not right.
Yeah.
We all had our pirating days or whatever on the internet at different points in time. But one of the main reasons I stopped, and not to sound like super self-righteous, is it's just like, what? Like, this is someone's livelihood. And yeah, you can talk about the man or all of these people taking a piece or whatever. there are all these websites. A really popular one is Bandcamp. You're able, I think they only take like 10% or whatever, but then like PayPal takes some and all of that. But to quote the Fast and Furious, I use this quote all the time. 80% of something is better than 100% of nothing.
Yeah.
Or even the flip. Like, people will be like, man, Spotify doesn't pay artists. Spotify pays, like, I think it's 70-30 on advertising revenue they pay to the artist, which is actually very kind to do a 70-30 where the artist gets 70%. I think what we should be focused on is that nobody's making a lot of money here. Hey, like, everyone is, it's wild. But all of that to say, don't do copyright infringement, you guys. Also, you're probably doing it right now. You are doing it right now.
Well, and like it's just wild that like these people will complain about like someone like reposting their reels or using their photos or whatever,
Right.
And I hate using these people complain about this but do this, because it's not always true, and like it's very hard to like necessarily pinpoint without specific examples. But I feel like that's a common complaint that I hear, where like people complain about like their content being stolen, and reused.
Well, no, that's
like,
a great point. Like, where they just they just sit there and they react to it.
Right.
But then like they don't even really react. They just are, there's just like a little dude in the bottom corner watching someone else's reel. It's the same thing. Like, ridiculous. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
And yet they'll get so upset at Internet Archive losing this case where they were essentially just copying books and putting them online for free for everyone, so that therefore no author could make a penny off their book. Because why would I? Why would I buy a book if I could legally go to Internet Archive and just like read it there for free? Like that. Like,
well, some people would say that maybe you want to support the author, but like, so you'll go around and buy it and stuff. But in the end, like, that author still deserves to be paid, right? Like,
and that's essentially a donation then. Like, and how many people donate as opposed to actually purchasing a good or service? Like, you might hate capitalism, but the fact is that it does, like, actually give, like, something for something, I mean, that's
I just want to clarify that David said you may hate capitalism, but, like, he's not specifically talking to me. I just want to clarify that. Continue.
But there is an exchange of goods and services for, like, money in that system. And like that, like without that, you don't see generosity. You really don't see like a lot of donations coming through. Otherwise, like you'd be living like a king over there in Japan. I mean,
yeah, I really don't see a lot of donations coming through at all.
Yeah. I mean, like, and that's valid. Like, we all have our own expenditures and like life challenges and everything, and we don't have a whole lot to give to other people sometimes. And I think that that's totally fine to like not be able to afford to like give all your money away when you're busy on like, securing things for yourself and whatnot. Like, we can talk about like the ethicalness of capitalism on a future episode, but I mean, like, when it comes down to it, like no one should be compelled to donate, right? Like, I mean, even taxes are still an exchange for like living under like a government that like
I do want all of our listeners to feel compelled to donate to me right now. Yes, you should feel compelled.
But like even taxes are an exchange, which people like completely mischaracterize all the time as like, oh, like the government's just taking my money. Yeah, they're also providing like a system under which you can live and like providing the means for you to live under that system and whatnot and like protect you.
It's protection.
And, like,
it's protection money, you guys. We've all seen the movies where the gang comes in and demands protection money, and everyone hates them. But like, hey, like they are we've all seen it.
Yeah.
But that, and I understand too where people like, well, I don't have money for this and such, but also those protections, they don't just like for you to read a book. There's a lot of people involved. There's an author, there are editors, there are publishers, there are book printers, there are delivery drivers, then there are the stores that carry these books, whether they be like real stores, or then you get into, well, it's a digital book. It's like, okay, so there's like a digital store and there are servers and there are, again, still editors and proofreaders. There are artists who do all of the artwork for all of it. Like all of those people are a part of this chain that get something when you pay your $9.99 to buy a book somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Everyone gets like a little piece of that of varying degrees, and like to just bypass them and just take it for free because you can is stealing.
One,
And
even
it's
to
the
create
same
the
with
content, like
right.
even to write the words, to like have the idea, to like actually like make the book, like even that like being stolen is still not okay because that was an investment on that person's part to like
Right.
create that. Like if I made a
Right.
sandwich and someone stole it every single day, I'd be pretty upset. Like I mean, like that would be pretty frustrating.
Right. And there is a lot there, but also for people who are listening who are like, what do you mean like doing basically any of those things is copyright infringement? Also, most people don't care about copyright infringement unless you're making money. I want to throw that out
That's
there
true.
really quick.
Yeah.
If you're making money, that's when they want a piece of that. Because what they want to do is they're basically, you're going to be part of that chain now of like, okay, well, you're making money from it. If you're making money from it, we all need to be making money from this too. And then, of course, you also run into brand protection, which is if you're using someone else's brand to make money, they do have the right and really the obligation to protect their brand, right? Nobody wants to see Mario shooting people, but Nintendo definitely doesn't want to see that, right?
Yeah.
Like, for real, like Nintendo will be very fast to...
Or Twitch doesn't want to have like Dr. Disrespect on, and so they, terminate his contract. And so
right,
now
exactly.
he can complain all he wants, but that was their right, and they didn't need to like have legal charges brought up to do that. I mean,
yeah. But I do want to end this podcast, D, and rearrange the studio. So, do you have anything you would like to close with?
Play Outlaws. That's great. And
everyone
Farmer,
play Outlaws.
We miss you wherever you are.
Yeah.
We wish that you had, stayed with us, but
Yeah, but hey, he had a good run. But
Force Ghost Farmer.
Yeah, welcome everybody. Farmer's actually probably playing Outlaws right now. But make sure you guys like and subscribe and do all the things, and we'll catch you guys next week. Bye. Get out of here, Craig.